Hi everyone, welcome back to the UNDEAD Talk podcast. This is our second one, and today we're going to be talking about Season 1, Episodes 4, 5, and 6 to finish off Season 1, and I have my dad here to join me. Thanks for coming on.
Hey everybody.
So, we have a short season, which is easier to get through, and you can kind of tell, like, the pacing, it's very fast because they had a lot to pack into these 6 episodes, and these 3 were pretty good episodes, I think, and I think they were better than the first 3 in my opinion. I think the season got better as it went on. I don't know what you think, but I think this was a pretty strong first season for the show.
Absolutely. I thought it was engaging. Even though it's been a long time since I saw it the first time, the second time through, I was connected to it. I cared about the characters, the struggle, a lot of the what if questions. It was good stuff.
So to start things out, we got Season 1, Episode 4, called Vatos. And the little summary on Netflix says, Rick's mission to Atlanta is jeopardized when things go awry. Jim becomes unhinged in the camp. This was mostly an action episode. Kind of like the main thing, we go and they only see like Merle's hand. The rest of him is gone. That was kind of a cliffhanger from episode 3. And then we have, okay, now we're going to go get the guns. So they almost get the guns, but then they're distracted by this Latino boy who needs help. And then Glenn gets kidnapped by this gang. So then Rick, Daryl, and T-Dog, they take the Latino boy hostage. And then they try to do a trade. And then the funny thing is that they reveal that the gang, they were protecting a retirement home.
Yeah, I mean, this whole episode was fantastic for multiple reasons. Number one, that they realize there's other groups out there, and they're struggling. They're struggling just like them, and they're in survival mode, and that everything's traumatic, and so they're acting in ways that they typically wouldn't act. And at the heart of this, they're a group just like, Rick and his group. Mm-hmm. But this group is protecting a retirement community, and they're caring for the elderly. They're doing the best they can, trying to keep these people safe. And I think it really speaks a lot to, the behaviors that we go through when they're struggling and survival and taking care of the people that we love. Sometimes we'll act out of character. And the reason I say this is, that group, when they were surrounded by the elderly, acted different than they did when they were interacting with Rick's group, which I thought was interesting. Trauma causes us to change personalities, to act like tough guys. What do you think?
I thought it was all good. And then it kind of ends with Rick handing over half the weapons to the gang, which was like a nice thing to do. He saw the struggle, and it's kind of nice how like you can see like people are all like struggling in their own ways, like Merle, and Daryl, and then like this group of people, like the gang with the retirement home, like nobody is like completely sane because of this whole situation. So it's kind of cool to see how every character so far, except maybe Ed, has multiple layers to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then you get back to camp, and we see the camp is overrun by zombies.
Well, yeah, but there was a moment at the beginning of episode 4 where it was Amy and Andrea, and they were out fishing on the lake, and I thought that was like a sweet scene. A little bit, at first I thought it was kind of
calm before the storm.
At first I thought it was kind of out of place, but then I realized why they did it, and it was like a sweet moment between the sisters, but it was obviously a huge setup for how the episode ends when, yes, the zombies come to camp, and we probably get our most action yet at the end of episode 4, which is, I guess we should probably mention that kind of, Jim, we haven't gotten much of Jim yet, but he was digging graves, like, towards the beginning of the episode, and we're not sure why. So much, and he's, like, kind of going crazy, and Shane has to, like, restrain him. And we're kind of thinking, like, why, what is he thinking? Obviously, it was setting up for something, and then we see that his dream was that they had to bury their people.
Yeah, and whatever you think about dreams, whatever, he had some sort of premonition that something bad was going to happen, so he was doing his duty by preparing the graves, which I thought was interesting. Not something that I would have thought of, but great writing and a lot of creativity in the way that they approached that.
Yeah, and then the episode ends with Amy and Ed dying, and Jim remembers his dream.
Yeah.
And that was like a really good ending. I would say out of these three, though, this was probably might have been my least favorite of the three, but it was still a solid episode. If I had to rate it a 1 to 10, I thought it would be cool to like start doing these for the episode. I would say I would probably give it a 7. I thought it was a solid episode with a lot of good action, with some good like touching moments, and especially the Amy and Andrea scene at the beginning was a really sweet scene. The ending was really sad though. I thought,
sure.
Yeah,
for sure, and it sets up which is a major theme in the next episode is Andrea's grief over her sister, which really sets up. It goes all the way through the rest of the season. What is grief? What's a proper grief? And I think that's a question that runs through this show.
For episode 4 Vatos, like if you had to rate it 1 to 10, like based on how you liked it, what would
probably an 8.
Okay, you think it was a good episode?
Yep, I do.
Okay, so moving on to episode 5 called Wildfire. The little summary says Rick leads the group to the CDC after the attack, and Jim must make a terrible life and death decision. This one was the aftermath of episode 4 in many ways. There wasn't too much action to it, but I feel like after everything that's happened this season, this was a much needed episode to like slow things down a little bit, not right away rushing into more action. Episode 4, it ended with like a pretty big event, so I like that episode 5 did slow things down a bit, and it explored what the characters were going through. What did you think of episode 5?
Yeah, I thought it was a great reflection on the events that happened at the end of episode 4. Again, coming back to Andrea's grief, I think this was a significant thing for people to contemplate as the other characters were watching Andrea grieve over the body of her sister, and knowing that this dead body was going to be resurrected as a zombie, and they were all kind of scared for what was going to happen, but Andrea was grieving in Andrea's way, which I thought was a very powerful statement, and everyone else grieves in their own ways. I mean, grief is unique to each person.
Yes. And I thought actually my favorite scene of the episode was the Andrea saying goodbye to Amy, and it goes to show you, because he said something about how like she didn't spend enough time with her, and it just shows that regret that like, and I feel like there's that message there that it's like tomorrow, like you're never guaranteed a tomorrow type of thing, and to like take full stock of your life.
Absolutely. Relationships are important. Invest in them while you have the chance.
Like family and friends, they are more important than you may think. So I got that message. So I thought, yeah, it was really like a powerful scene there. And then really like, I mean, touching is the wrong word, but like when she has to shoot her, and you just got to feel really bad for Andrea. I thought that was a really big moment for her character. And I think that was my favorite moment of the episode.
I agree. I thought another interesting part of the episode was when they were out, Rick and gang were out hunting, and Shane put his rifle sight on Rick.
Yeah, he almost shot him.
Or considered it.
Yeah.
And maybe that was a preview of what's coming. It's really a preview of Shane's character. He is a very divided person. He loves his best friend, but he also loves his best friend's wife. And he is dealing with that tension and not doing it well.
Well, Shane, he's a very like complicated character. He has a lot of layers to him, you can tell. how he protected Lori and Carl in episode 4 when, everyone came, and, that showed that he does really care about them. And then in this episode, like, you can kind of tell, like, there's, like, all this tension between Rick and Shane about, like, Rick's, like, leadership decisions.
Yeah, there's this big question of, well, where should the group go? Shane wants to take him to Fort Bragg or an Army base, and Rick wants to go to the CDC. And so there's this tension.
To find a cure for
Jim.
to
find a cure. And so, Rick's point is, well, maybe if we go to CDC, maybe there will be a cure. Maybe there'll be a cure for Jim. Maybe we can save him. And Shane's more like, okay, Jim's done. Let's get rid of him, and let's go where the strength is, to an army base where there would be, protection. And so one for the cure, and the other for defense and strength. And it's two different ways of going, and they end up going with Rick's decision. Rick takes the leadership of the group, and really Rick has faith in science. Rick believes that science, is an important part, and so there's a lot of questions there. Where is real strength? Is it in guns, or is it in science? And I thought that was an interesting dilemma there.
And Dale sees that. He sees that moment where Shane's considering shooting Rick. So I assume that it's a storyline that's going to continue into season 2, is that friendship. And maybe the triangle's not 100% over based on episode 6.
Well, I kind of remember where this is headed on that story, so I'm not going to speak to that.
Okay.
But I will say Jim's decision to what Jim wanted to do. And I think that's the way the episode ended, right? Jim being left.
Yeah, they left him at that tree, yeah.
Yeah, and that was Jim's decision. So the group respected Jim's choice, which I thought, we see this kind of idea of free will woven through this, and how important our individual choices are. We each have to make decisions for ourselves, what's right for ourselves.
Yeah.
And the group respects that for Jim.
I think the hard thing about this, like, about the short seasons, that it feels like we don't get to spend as much time with the characters as we would like before some of them die.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a bummer. Like, it would have been cool to spend more time with Amy and Jim and, certain characters. And it's hard when episode 5 you have to say goodbye to them.
Yep.
It does seem kind of too soon.
Yep.
So I hope in future seasons they might, like, try to... Maybe the writing would be fixed a little bit to give us more time with certain characters. Sure. And I'm sure it will with longer seasons. But two kind of other things before we get to them leaving is that we have Carol, and kind of it's the whole message, like, everyone deals with grief in their own ways. Her husband died, and she decides to beat him up with an axe. Yeah,
well, she was experienced trauma from her husband, Ed, and so therefore...
I found it completely understandable.
Yeah, she needed... I mean, he's dead already, but she needed to get something out, and that was her way of dealing with it.
And especially because we saw her in episode 3, she was like... The ladies were like, come on, Carol, like, you don't deserve this. And then she still stuck by her husband, and now she's doing something for herself, in a way, by doing that. And I thought that was also a moment for her character where she seemed very, like, passive. And so, and then Rick's also trying to communicate with Morgan from episode 1. It does seem like it's setting up for maybe Morgan to come back around at some point.
Yeah, it's definitely a thread that's been woven through. So it's interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see where that goes.
So yeah, they all leave to go to the CDC except Morales and his family. They're going off.
Different direction. That's right, and that was their choice.
Yeah, I like that. There's a lot of respecting each other's choices in this, and everyone has their own way they're going to go about things in a time like this. So they go to the CDC. They leave Jim under the tree. And then we kind of cut to this doctor named Edwin Jenner. And he is, like, studying samples for something, but then it's all destroyed. And I thought it was interesting how, like, this was completely different from what we were used to. It was a good setup for episode 6. Because the end of episode 5 was the gang comes in and they can... And, like, they go to the CDC, but it's kind of all closed. But then Rick can, like... thinks that there's someone in there, and the episode ends with Jenner like opening the door for them to go in, which was, and it was a kind of like a cool shot, like the lighting. I thought
it was like, here's hope, hope, and again, with The Walking Dead, they need hope to continue on. So the light was a way for them to say, okay, here's something good that's going to happen in the midst of all this bad.
Yeah. So that's episode 5, and I would probably say I would maybe rate that. That was I thought maybe like a 9 out of 10 for that one. I thought that was a really good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it like I did episode 4. I'd say an 8 out of 10.
Okay. So here we go, the finale. We just watched the finale, so this is mostly fresh in our minds. It's called TS19, and the Little's Netflix summary is Rick and the group are allowed into the CDC by a strange doctor, but not all is what it seems in their newly found haven. And it starts off with this flashback to episode 1, the beginning of episode 1 after Rick gets shot. And there's a zombie breakout at the hospital. And Shane comes in to rescue Rick, but then he's like, oh, he's dead because he doesn't have the heartbeat. He doesn't hear his heartbeat. So then he like he leaves. He puts a bed outside of Rick's door to prevent the zombies from getting in. And that's kind of like the flashback. So it goes to show you how loyal Shane is to Rick.
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
What I got from that.
Yeah. And Shane didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And he did the best that he could. He made a choice, and he had to live with it. And,
I thought that was, from what we know of Shane, I thought that I sympathized with him more with that than some of the other stuff he's done.
Sure.
It was kind of maybe trying to give him like a little like a good quality for him. I thought is his loyalty for Rick. So yeah, and then they get into the CDC, and the doctor is like, okay, well, once you get in that door, it's not closing. They don't fully realize what that means yet. They just want to go in for safety.
Well, it's not opening. So once they're in. It's not going to open for them to leave. And of course, the light at the end of episode 5 communicated this is hope. So they're going in all excited, and things are pretty good. I mean, they get showers, they got a place to stay. There's a library. There's food, wine.
They have wine. Even Carl drinks wine.
Yeah, so it's a this is what they were hoping for.
Mm-hmm. But then we have this scene, which was just sad and kind of creepy, where a drunk Shane comes in to talk to Lori. He's like, I can't believe you're treating me this way. Like, I thought he was dead. I had no other choice. Like, it's not like I told you he was dead to get you to come to me. And he's just getting really aggressive. You can tell she doesn't want this. And then he tries to, like, pretty much rape her. And then she scratches him. And there's that. Which, that kind of goes to show me that the love triangle is not 100% over.
Yeah, but Lori's made her decision.
Yeah, she's staying with
and
Rick,
Shane's struggling with that. And, of course, when people are drinking like that, bad things happen. And that's... it just like trauma, in a way, affects our decision making. So does alcohol and other things like that. So it's just interesting to see how these characters are acting in ways that they probably wouldn't have acted in a normal day-to-day situation.
So then we have, I thought, because then in the end, like, Lori and Rick are, like, together in bed, and I thought that was kind of, like, signaling her choice. Mm-hmm. For the end of the season, like, she's chosen to be with Rick and not Shane. Mm-hmm. Which we kind of are, like, from once they got back, we kind of knew that's she was choosing that. So it made her more likable of a character, and because she chose Rick instead of, like, going back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
Which I appreciated.
She's being loyal to her husband.
Mm-hmm. Because they could have done it where, like, she, like, goes back and forth between both of them, but they didn't. She made a mistake, and then she corrected it. Now, however, when I'm sure Rick's going to find out at some point, or maybe he already knows that there was something. We'll see. I'm sure that'll be addressed at some point. But I'm going to have you, like, try to, because he gives, like, a presentation of, like, the brain. I still don't fully understand that, so I'm going to kind of ask you to, like, explain.
Yeah, I mean, and this is interesting. So he's a scientist. He's the only one left. The group is hoping that, the CDC's come up with a cure. Unfortunately, as it comes out, he's the only one left. Everyone else is dead, either via, they escaped or suicide. And then he shows this presentation of a person who was alive, and it showed their brain activity with lights bouncing around, showing that they're alive, and that's their thoughts and their memories and their activities bouncing around in the brain. And then the person dies, and all of that goes blank, and all that activity is gone, of course. And then the resurrection as a zombie, there's this kind of different color activity happening in the brain, and the brainstem is all black, and it's a communication. The doctor was saying that once you turn into a zombie, you're no longer human, right? Mm-hmm. And you're no longer alive. You are something else. And so that was an interesting presentation. We later find out that the person who is being displayed in this presentation was Dr. Jenner's wife, mm-hmm. who was also working at the CDC. She got infected. She died. And she made him promise that he would continue going, trying to find a cure.
And he had to shoot her in the head, right?
Yeah, he had to mm-hmm. kill her when she turned into a zombie. Mm-hmm. And so, that's just crazy stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard to even process. But for those who are, dealing with like Andrea losing Amy and things like that, is that, when someone dies and they're resurrected, they're no longer they're no longer the same person. Mm-hmm. And I think that was important for Andrea to grieve with Amy, because Andrea had to shoot Amy, the zombie Amy. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of that going on. And it turns out that there is no cure, and they find out that they're almost out of fuel, mm-hmm. and the whole CDC building's going to blow up in like half an hour. Mm-hmm. And so...
And Jenner wants to trap them.
Yeah, Jenner...
He thinks that this will be a more peaceful way to die than getting attacked by zombies.
So yeah, here's one of the themes that's in this whole show is the idea of choice. Can one person make the choice for the entire group? And that's what Jenner wants to do. He wants to make the decision for the entire group that they all would die together when the building blew up. Mm-hmm. And the group doesn't want that. And we see this, who makes the decisions? Do we have the individual decision, or is a free will overrided by mm-hmm. One person? And so eventually Jenner opens up the doors. They got just a couple minutes left, and Jenner and one of the group, what's her name?
The black. Yeah, Jackie.
Jackie stays behind. The rest of the group goes out. Now, Andrea and Dale stick behind, and I think that's a really important scene. You got the whole group leaving. You have Jenner and Jackie made the decision to stay, mm-hmm. and then Andrea wants to stay because she thinks life is over, but Dale sticks with her. And Dale says, well, if you're not going, I'm not going. And eventually Andrea decides to go with the group. And so there's a lot of relational dynamics here that are really, really cool about life and how we need each other. And so they all end up going out of the building as it blows up. And it's a pretty powerful scene.
Is this suggesting that Dale has feelings for Andrea, or is it like a father and daughter type?
I really wasn't thinking about that, but there's definitely connections happening. People care for one another. In fact, I think Dale says that. He cares for her. Mm-hmm. There are relationships developing in the midst of this traumatic tragedy of, the zombie apocalypse. And we need each other. That's the element of, we're hardwired for connection. And Dale needs Andrea. And Andrea needs Dale in the group. We all need each other mm-hmm. to make it through. And I think that was a pretty powerful scene.
Yeah, and then it ends with everything blowing up, and they all leave. So pretty much everyone survived except Jenner and Jackie.
Yeah, and they made that decision for themselves.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's a good setup, because I feel like if they had killed more people, it would have been hard, because we didn't get to spend a lot of time with these characters. So I'm glad they kept mostly everyone alive for season 2, so we get to spend more time with them.
Yeah, I agree.
So this episode I would maybe rate it I really liked it. Maybe like a 9.5.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, God, I really loved season 1. I thought season 1 was great. I thought about it in between episodes, which I typically don't do for television shows that I watch. This one captivated me. I was really interested in the characters and their choices, and mm-hmm. I really enjoyed it. So, yeah, I'd say 9.5. And overall, I thought the season itself was a 9. I thought it was mm-hmm. great television.
As far as season 2 goes, we'll watch it soon, and I think I kind of like the reviewing 3 episodes at a time. I think it's not too much to talk about, but also not like too little, I guess. Like, I feel like we'll probably stick with the 3 episodes for each podcast.
Yeah, so there'd be 3, and then maybe a 1 extra one for the finale.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But yeah, season 2, I'm looking forward to it. I think there's a lot more they can do. Obviously, with Shane, exploring him more and the different sides of him. Maybe more on like Rick, Lori, and Carl and that like family dynamic. Carol had like the key. What was that she handed to
She had a
Rick?
grenade.
Yeah, which destroyed, and they were able to get out. Maybe more with Carol, and she has a daughter too. Of course, T-Dog is the black guy. Maybe more with him and Glenn, the pizza boy, and Daryl. And then, of course, Dale and Andrea.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. Carol had the grenade. The one who seems not to be useful at all. Doesn't bring anything to the table. Doesn't bring anything of contribution to the group.
Well, she was just so passive.
Right.
Like,
but she has something that saves the day.
Yeah, and she beat her husband up. She did something, and then she has the grenade, so it...
Something's happening in her. She's a transformation taking place with Carol.
I like all these characters. I feel like out of all of them, we probably know the least about T-Dog. And Glenn. But it would be maybe in season 2 they'll explore.
Yeah, hope so. I really don't remember at all, so it's going to be exciting to watch this over again.
I'm looking forward to it. So, comment down below what you guys think of these 3 episodes and what you thought of season 1 as a whole. We'll be back next week to start season 2 out. So thanks everyone for listening, and bye everyone.
See ya.